What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, where we go through the latest Detroit Lions news. We're back with another training camp update video. Day number 6 is in the books, the second day of pads for the Lions, and you could definitely feel the intensity in practice today. So let's get it started.
Fired up. It's made a great decision.
Great teammates, coaches, and other people who want to be Super Bowl champions, and we're gonna do it this year.
And we're going places because we want to go places.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
And welcome everybody to my video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we are back with another training camp update video, and we're just going to dive right into this thing because you could absolutely feel the intensity in practice today. There are a few players that always seem to bring it, where it's like, man, the play's not going to end when the whistle blows. It's going to continue. Guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, they just get after it. There was no sort of like fights today, but there were definitely players that got after it in practice, and it's just a different level of intensity when those pads come on. But we're also getting very close to football. I mean, we're a day and a half, 2 days away from seeing preseason football. Not the Lions, but football's that close to being back. So we're here. We've made it as we continue with Detroit Lions at training camp. So let's waste no time. Let's dive right into it. I got to give a couple of shout outs as usual. First off, shout out to Dr. Detroit. It was awesome to meet you today and what you did for us, man. I appreciate the support. Also, shout out to the people that said what's up. Shout out to my man Austin, Eli, and his brother. That was really cool. I appreciate it. Y'all made me feel like I was famous. And now let's get into this. We're going to start off with some of the injury updates that we do have. Taking a look at the PUP list and the NFI list, that remains the same with Josh Paschal, Jason Cabinda, Jerry Jacobs, and Romeo Okwara on the PUP list. No changes there. The NFI list as well with Jamal Williams, CJ Moore, who continues to be a very active participant. I couldn't tell if it was him in the back that was running. Someone in the back was like running sprints. Couldn't tell if that was him, but I did see him at the end of the practice come up to the front and continue to work off to the side. So he's been extremely engaged. As I said in the last video, I assume he's not super far out. Greg Bell continues to be out with his non-contact injury, and Dan Campbell told us that the signing of Justin Jackson was sort of due to the news that they had with Greg Bell. They expect him to miss some time, and they want another running back. They want another body for practice. Went out and they signed Justin Jackson. The move that happened yesterday corresponded to seeing Corey Sutton being placed on the Lions reserve retired list. Quintes Cephas, yes, this was the bad news of the day, and you know that this can happen without pads on, like the Greg Bell injury, but this is the unfortunate news, is that Quintes Cephas was helped off the practice field today with a left leg injury. It looked like he went up, made a nice catch on Jeff Okudah in wide receiver versus defensive back drills, but he laid down for a little bit. The trainers had to help him off. Now, I didn't exactly see it happen, and we don't know the severity of it. They didn't use the cart to get him off. They just helped him. He didn't put a lot of weight seemingly on that left leg. So we'll keep an eye on that injury with Quintes Cephas for sure. I would say at this point he's kind of become a fan favorite because the dude just plays. You put the pads on and he just plays. Like, throw everything out the window of athleticism. Throw it all out the window. The guy can absolutely play. Hopefully it's nothing serious with Quintes Cephas. We'll keep an eye on that one because that is not a guy that you want to lose. And we know we have a really nice wide receiver battle going on right now with guys like Trinity Benson, Khalil Pimpleton, who continues to shine. With that being said, James Mitchell, as Dan Campbell said, they're kind of ramping it up, it seems like, as they're hoping to kind of get him into some, like the 11-on-11 team drills possibly by the end of the week. He said he's been involved in some of the 7-on-7s, and you could see James Mitchell, you see him running off to the side. Same thing with Devin Funchess. I noticed that as well. I like Devin Funchess because he always finishes the play. I didn't really notice a lot of plays that he made today necessarily, but he always seems to finish the play. But James Mitchell, you see him running off to the side when he's not involved in drills. So those are injury updates that we have from practice today. Hopefully everything is okay with Quintes Cephas. We may get an update on that tomorrow. Let's start off with some of these group drills first and some of my takeaways because, yes, when the pads come on, the group drills become very exciting. As we discussed yesterday, they had that fun drill where the defender is trying to make the tackle on the ball carrier, and that one always brings a lot of energy. Well, today they had the drill of running backs and tight ends trying to block like a blitzing linebacker, right? It's like a blitz pickup drill. And they did this a lot last season, and usually, I think last year actually a couple guys did get into it through this drill because it's physical. I mean, it's just straight up. You line up across from a guy and you run into him. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Well, not really. Like, the guy's trying to get to the quarterback, but the blocker is just standing there waiting for him. So it's pretty simplified. There's no blockers. It's just one-on-one. You try to stop him from getting here. So you can assume that, yeah, that's probably going to get pretty darn physical, and that was the case today, and it started off with a bang. All right, I told you that Jamal Williams, like, hype clip that he did. I was like, wait, that's Jamal Williams? That's the kind of energy that he has? Well, the first rep, he went against Alex Anzalone. And man, Jamal Williams who is one of the better pass protecting running backs in football. I mean, the guy has got a build to him, right? But man, he loves to block. You can see that he just embraces that. This one went a little bit on after the whistle. You could just see the energy by the initial pop that Jamal Williams put on Alex Anzalone. I would definitely give Jamal the edge on this rep as he just battled with Alex Anzalone. He set the tone from the very start. It was like, okay, that's how this is going to be. He gave up a nice little yell after the rep. The energy was there immediately.
I'm gonna get loose no matter what it is. I'm gonna route run. I'm gonna take some ankles. I'm a bully as usual, but people think they understand what type of football player I am, and they don't have no clue what I can do. I literally can take anybody's ankles. I ain't scared of nobody. Route running, running the ball, blocking. I can do it all, and I have no problem having confidence in myself because I know what type of player I am and what type of work I put in. I ain't scared of nothing.
From Jamal Williams, you can tell that he loves this drill, and we know he's outstanding as a running back pass protector, so you can kind of see why when you see him go through drills like this. Now, I did miss a few of these reps because, you know, actually usually they have this going on, but they also have other things going on as well, so you're kind of trying to peek at everything, but I try to make a main focus. And today, because I talked about wide receiver DB a lot yesterday, I wanted to try to focus a little bit more on the running backs trying to block the linebackers and kind of alternate, try to get different notes. So with that said, the next rep that I had was Craig Reynolds against Anthony Pittman, and this one was a battle as well, and Craig Reynolds just went up and just locked him up. He absolutely locked up Anthony Pittman. Craig Reynolds is a little bulldog, man. Just locked up Anthony Pittman. Brock Wright, who I had losing the rep, giving up the pressure to the tight end. Then you had Chris Board, who I had winning the battle against Godwin Igwebuike, who would have gotten to the quarterback. I said that name pretty well right there. That was pretty smooth. I like that. Justin Jackson. We got to see Justin Jackson already today, so they were able to get him in very quickly. Now, he was kind of at the bottom in terms of running back depth chart, but he was engaged early today, and he made some plays starting off here with his pass block rep, and I actually thought he won, and he had a pretty good rep here in the pass blocking situation. The one that kind of surprised me the most, because I know there's that dog in DeAndre Swift. I mean, you can see when you just watch film, you could see that dog in DeAndre Swift after the play, the frustration, and he brought it out on this play. I thought, you know, he didn't like lock him up like I thought Craig Reynolds and Jamal Williams had fantastic reps. He didn't necessarily do that, but DeAndre Swift set the tone and was so impressive. It was against Mccollum Rodriguez. Mccollum is a very big dude, okay, right? He set the record for bench press reps. The guy is huge, and DeAndre Swift brought the battle to him. I wouldn't say he like hemmed him up, locked him up, and he couldn't move at all, but he definitely set the tone with his initial strike and just went out and got Mccollum Rodriguez. I mean, he just went out and got him. I was like, okay, DeAndre Swift, I really wasn't expecting that from him. And I noticed Shane Zylster, who seemed to have a pretty solid rep against Kirby Joseph. Thought it was interesting that they put Kirby in this drill, but he's probably a pretty nice sub-package potential piece. So yeah, he may blitz a little bit, and you may have to pick up a guy like that brings a little bit more speed. It's a nickel secondary player that gets matched up under tight end. Potentially he blitzes, brings it off the edge, and the tight end has to try to pick him up. And I thought Shane Zylster did pretty well. I also have some notes from the running backs versus like linebackers in terms of coverage, because they did that a little bit as well. And of course, wide receiver versus defensive back. Now, I definitely missed reps in terms of wide receivers versus defensive backs, but I do have a few that stood out to me. Starting off with Savion Smith, he's a pretty long, tall corner that plays extremely physical off the line of scrimmage from what I have seen. And there are times you're like, yeah, that's probably a flag. There's probably something that's going to get called on that play. So I'm very curious to see how he performs when the Lions have like a ref at practice or in joint practices or heck, even in the preseason. But with that said, right now, if you want a guy to be physical with him 5 yards, he's going to accept that challenge. He's going to battle you off the line of scrimmage. That's just how he plays. The first rep that I noted was a pass breakup that he had with really tight, great coverage in the first rep that I took a look at. Then the next one came back with a bang. Chase Lucas, who for some reason I can't wrap my brain around him wearing number 36. I don't know why. Every time I look at him, I'm like, who is that guy? He had a pick on an out route on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Just jumped the out route. And St. Brown has been tough because he is shifty. And, you know, in this drill, of course, the quarterback tells the receiver what to run, and there's no help. There's no really help for the cornerback in that situation other than maybe the sideline. There's no one else on the field. So with that said, it's tough for, you know, the defense, and usually the offense is winning these matchups consistently. With that said, I thought the defense definitely did pretty well today from the reps that I saw, but Chase Lucas's pick was extremely impressive because I've seen Amon-Ra St. Brown just shake people, and this was impressive for him to be able to stick that tight and then undercut and pick it off. I'm not sure if he got his feet in bounds, but it was a pretty attempt regardless. Then Will Harris had a nice little pass breakup. Khalil Pimpleton, it's hard not to notice him because last year it was Khalif Raymond in these reps that you just always took note of because he was a different body type. He was smaller, but he was super shifty, pretty darn fast, and he was just tough for anyone to cover one-on-one. And basically Khalil Pimpleton has been that almost to another level. He's even shorter, so he's even tougher sort of to hit for quarterbacks at times because he is a small target. But with that being said, if you get him man coverage, and basically if he runs any sort of underneath route man coverage, or if he's like clean off the line, he's going to get open. I mean, that's just kind of what it seems to be. It's just a question of can he put it on him. Well, in this drill, Khalil Pimpleton had a pretty rep, shaking Brady Breeze, catching it underneath on just like a quick out, and then planting and then taking it off to the end zone. Really, the scoring and running after a catch doesn't really matter too much in this drill. It's not like they really try to do much after they catch the football, but it just kind of showed the shiftiness that the guy had. Then DJ Chark got matched up with Savion Smith, and this time DJ Chark won this battle on like an underneath slant route. But you saw the physicality from Savion Smith to go to battle with him, but he played through it and made a play on the slants. Deshaun Elliott, who I thought had a pretty rough day in terms of just straight up coverage matchups, specifically in these drills, is he started off with wide receiver DBs, did a couple reps, then he went over to like the running backs and the tight ends and did a rep over there, and he was beat there too. Definitely not the best showing for Deshaun Elliott. He was kind of just burnt by Brock Wright in the first rep around that I saw. And then it was Amon-Ra St. Brown who got the best of him. And it's weird because St. Brown, I mean, he's so shifty and crafty with his route running. He looks bigger than he is sometimes. Other times he looks way faster than he is. He just kind of mixes it up. I mean, sometimes you can't even tell who he is if you can't see his number. He really is a crafty, creative route runner that can just kind of adjust his play style to whatever the route suits. Then you move on to some of these kind of like running back tight ends versus linebackers / safeties, and I only got a couple of notes from these. The first one I noted was an incomplete pass that they threw to Godwin with Jared Davis kind of trailing in coverage. It's not like he broke the pass up, but he was trailing in coverage. That's also something that they had the linebackers work on before practice started, was linebackers covering running backs out of the backfield, and then they got to this drill, so that was like how they warmed up. That was one of the group drills that they did to begin practice. Jamar Jefferson had a nice catch and run against Sean Dion Hamilton. He continues to me to just show out in training camp. I mean, going back to last year, Jamar just flashes. He had probably the biggest play today as well, which we'll end up getting to. And then Shane Zylstra, who had a nice like vertical catch on Deshaun Elliott. So yeah, it probably wasn't the best drill for Deshaun Elliott. I don't think he had like any wins in there, but you do see that after drills, him and Tracy Walker always talking, kind of working together, working on their technique, things like that. So those two have seemed to bonded pretty well to being, you know, kind of that 1-2 combo at the safety position, but not the best day for Deshaun Elliott. However, Tracy Walker continues to impress from these type of drills, just in his ability to stay much more sticky in coverage than I remember in the past. That just seemed to be a huge development within his game. Oh, finally, I forgot one. Trinity Benson. He ran like a comeback route, and he absolutely just put the defender on the ground. I definitely, again, missed some reps here in the 11-on-11s as well, but there was a lot of 11-on-11 today, so I'm just going to share with you kind of the things that stuck out to me when they went to these drills, and they changed it up. You know, the first time they went through it, it was Will Harris with the top unit, Jeff Okudah with the second unit, the linebackers shifted, the safeties shifted, and we'll talk about that. But the first time around for 11-on-11s, as we said yesterday, kind of started off with the defense getting 2 sacks. Today was a different story. The first 2 plays I thought were 2 good runs for the offense, especially the second one where you just saw kind of that explosiveness to get to the outside, to get to that kind of second gear for DeAndre Swift, just the explosiveness that he had to break it outside. He had a spin at the top of the play, but the play was kind of dead by that point. Either way, you just saw his ability to get to the edge, and he looks really good right now. DeAndre Swift he stands out. He does stand out, and I know it's because of DeAndre Swift, but I don't think that's what it is for me. I think I just see him and he stands out in terms of just how explosive of a runner that he is. Talk about the intensity. There was a play where Will Harris and St. Brown afterwards just got into it, and I was like, oh snap, are they gonna fight? Like, what's happening here? They got into it, but then it just kind of dies off. Like, it lasts for like 5 seconds. Usually it comes from like them blocking. For example, Khalil Pimpleton got into it with, I think it was Savion Smith. Those 2 guys got into it. Usually it stems from like them blocking as receiver versus cornerback during the 11-on-11 play, and then after the whistle blows, they just kind of stick after it. But St. Brown, man, I mean, he is just like this. Like, he just brings it. And you know what? Some defenders don't take to it, and they get after it. So they got after it a little bit there. I was like, oh snap, what's gonna happen here? Like, they were getting each other's face. Like, I'm like backing up. I'm like, oh snap, are they gonna start fighting? Nothing like that happened. But with that being said, you could just see the competitive fieriness between the two. And you know, I think the Lions are all there for it. They don't want things getting out of control, but they do like the competitiveness between the 2 players. And we saw that yesterday. DeAndre Swift brought it when he just like threw the ball. He just brought it yesterday. Jamal Williams started it today. So, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think they like that that, especially in this sport. Then Jared Goff came out next play, had a nice little rollout catch, the rollout pass to DJ Chark. We'll get to a play that stuck out to me there, but they've been doing a lot of these kind of rollout crossers, middle of the field. Josh Reynolds has been involved here. We talked about Khalif Raymond the first day I saw him on Saturday. A lot of those type of movements, play actions, rollouts, getting him outside the pocket. Sometimes I don't think it comes up as a design rollout. He makes a check at the line, then he immediately rolls out, but they like to get over the middle. They've been attacking the middle a lot from what I've been seeing with a lot of these crossing type of routes. And DJ Chark, he's had a couple drops on these, but he's also made some really tough catches sliding outside of the frame. So we'll see where that consistency's at, of course, when we start to see him on the field. Now, the second team unit, they kind of switched it up. As we said, they switched it up in terms of, who was getting these reps with the second team and the third team. Because initially it was Will Harris, with the first team going through 11 on 11s. And the second team safeties, because the first team is always Tracy Walker and Deshaun Elliott. The second team was Brady Breeze and Iffy. Of course, there is no CJ Moore, so we'll see how that changed. Then they switched it up later and they kind of just changed the order of it. It was also Dion Hamilton working with Chris Board with the second team linebackers. So Alex and Derek Barnes with the first team. That seems to kind of be the top four right now. At least the top three. Now Chris Board, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes seem to kind of be the top three right now, with the rest of the spots kind of open. And we'll see how that ends up shaking out. So the next play that I had was with, of course, the second unit, and it was Chris Board who forced the cutback lane, and then he actually got back into the play and made a play on the football. Chris Board stood out to me yesterday. Today I try to focus a little bit more on the linebackers. Now, I was sitting behind it, so seeing the linebackers was, kind of weird, seeing the angles that they were taking, but I was trying to focus a little bit more on the linebackers today, and immediately, again, the guy that stood out first off was Chris Board. It's just his play rec seems to be there against the run, inside the tackle box. Even though he didn't do that a ton with Baltimore, it seems to be there, and he's a good athlete. Then I had Brady Breeze, who filled an outside run really well, just kind of got out there, filled the lane outside the tackle box. At the same time, I took a small little note of John Kaminsky, because every time I watch John Kaminsky, I just feel like he gets some sort of push, gets inside of a guard, gets inside of a tackle, and he's finding his way through a gap. He just always seems to do that and force things to bounce. I'm very excited to see what John Kaminsky does for us this season, but I feel really good about what I've seen so far to this point. Then there was a touchdown run from Craig Reynolds. They did like a shotgun left side run for Craig, and the linebackers were picked up really well. That included Malcolm Rodriguez and Jared Davis. This was kind of the next unit that they used for linebackers. And again, this did switch, but very early in this, it was a big touchdown run for Craig Reynolds with those two linebackers. The offensive line came up, picked him up cleanly, and you could just see it was like, oh, this could be a big play. He got outside, I believe, of Jeff Okudah, and then he just took it off down the sideline. So they had a huge run there. Then you had a rollout from Tim Boyle throwing it to an open Khalil Pimpleton on the right side. He just threw it too high and it fell incomplete. He had him again, but he's a small target, so it could be a little bit more difficult to hit that type of pass. Then the next unit of linebackers, because again I was focusing on them and their rotations, was Anthony Pittman and Josh Woods. That was kind of like the fourth unit. I will show a little bit of love to Ryan McCollum. I don't think I brought him up yesterday, but I had him in my notes. Someone that I have taken a few notes of that I'm like, okay, Ryan McCollum looks better. He wasn't great last season, right? He was our third string center. They brought him back this year. I'm not really thinking he's going to make the team, but Ryan McCollum does seem to be pretty improved. I mean, one-on-ones against defensive linemen, he held his own yesterday. I remember one rep where he just stonewalled the guy. I was like, who is that? I just wrote down his number. I'm like, that was Ryan McCollum. And then today, I think you just see the powerfulness and the physicality at the second level that he was able to demonstrate on some of those, runs that popped into the second level. So Ryan McCollum is someone that I will give a little bit of a shout out to. And then I had Mike Hughes down for a tackle for loss. Now, the next kind of set of 11 on 11, start off with the screenplay to a receiver that Michael Brocker seemed to have some play rec on. I don't know if he would actually made the play because he kind of like maybe would have overran it, but he was the only guy out there, so that's something. He was the only guy out there to potentially make the play. In actual game, though, he may not have actually made that tackle, but the Lions have been using a lot of screens. So I would say the Lions should be prepared for screens and staying disciplined, but it is a great combat tool for an aggressive defense to throw screens. So I think it's great that the Lions are getting that work right now as the front seven of wide receiver screens, running back screens, all these like fakes. They had one big one today, which we'll get to for Jamar, but all these kind of screens that they're doing, especially early in downs for a defense that's trying to dial it up, is probably necessary not only to help the offense, but to help the defense be prepared for probably what they're going to end up seeing during the season if that's how they come in and play. Noted then DJ Chark with a drop from Jared Goff with Okudah trailing. He was open, though. He's open on middle field, hit him right in the hands. He just dropped it. So it's kind of, I've just seen a couple, but nothing, I don't think I'm anything very concerned about, but it is something that I have noted a few times with him. Then he moved on to Aiden Hutchinson. And again, I was trying to focus a little bit more on Aiden Hutchinson. And I think Easy said it best when he said Aiden Hutchinson is a problem. And you know what I've noticed watching, of course, yesterday's rep that they put out there, but just seeing him line up at different spots, seeing him go one-on-one, is that this is going to be very good for him to have an offensive line like this, because you're not going to be able to beat a Penei Sewell or a Taylor Decker or Frank Wright or really anybody along this offensive line very often if your rep is not spotless, right? If you have a good early win, but then, hey, maybe they pick it up and you don't have a clean counter, you're going to get locked back up and they're going to recover. They just have guys that can do that. If it's not a good start to the rep, it's going to be really difficult. You're going to have to work even harder to try to get yourself any kind of movement, because they're going to start straight up stonewall you. And that's what Aiden Hutchinson is getting right now. You're seeing the improvement, because you'll see one rep where it's like, man, he just got locked up. And then you come back with another one, it's like, oh my gosh, that's why he was a top pick in the draft. He is ridiculous. And to me, with pass rush, you're not going to win every single rep. It just doesn't happen. But consistently in 11-on-11, usually there's at least one play where he's getting himself into the backfield from what I've seen. And that was here. He lined up against Penei Sewell. We saw yesterday he kind of had like a little weird get off. This time he got Penei Sewell around the edge, kind of went with like a shoulder dip, rip through underneath, and he got after Jared Goff, forced him to step up into the pocket. And I can't actually remember where the ball went. I think he threw it away, but that was like the last play of that series. But Aiden Hutchinson was the only guy that seemingly even got into the backfield working against Penei Sewell. So it's kind of been that, and he's been moved around all of the time. But he showed up today. He showed up today in big moments, and we'll continue with that in a second. Demetrius Taylor, show him some love as well. Today I noticed his play rec, like Michael Brockers, on a screen, as he was the only guy out there on another screen that they ran. Usually it tells a lot about a defensive lineman when you run a screen, and you're seeing that they're actually able to find it, and they're able to recognize, pick up that the blockers are leaving, and they don't continue to just close their eyes and rush the quarterback. Being a very heads-up defensive lineman shows play rec when they can get out on screens, and that's what I noted there with Demetrius Taylor. Again, I don't know if he would have actually made the play, but I noticed it. At this point, they had the second unit. So the first time around, third unit, they had Mike Hughes with the third unit. Second time around, they had Mike Hughes in the slot, Bobby Price on the outside, along with Will Harris, and that meant Okudah was with the first team. So they were just kind of flipping it from what I noticed. I think Okudah actually got more reps on first team because he did it at the end of practice too, but they're still kind of rotating a lot of these guys, a lot of these groups, and just trying to get different looks. They kind of mix-matched the offense a little bit today, where they came out and like the offense had, some of the backups in at receiver, things like that. That leads me to a great coverage rep with that unit, where I saw Mike Hughes and Bobby Price force an incompletion, as David Blau didn't have anywhere to go with the football. They played man coverage. They had like a deep out or like a deep corner route with a vertical route, and the Lions secondary covered it up well. David Blau had nowhere to go. He was forced to roll left, and then he had to end up taking off. Tim Boyle had to take off one time today too. He took off towards the sideline, and he finished the play, but they were both forced to take off. We said Goff. So there's a couple reps in there where we were like, oh, that was good coverage. Khalil Pimpleton then comes back. He beats Will Harris on a nice little out route from David Blau. Then with the third team, they switched it back, so now you had Brady Breeze and Iffy working with the third team. That leads to another receiver screen. You see a common theme? First play is a screen, so that's what they've been doing a lot. First play screen. Chase Lucas, I thought, made a great play on the receiver screen. That's going to be a big part. Lions needed their cornerbacks to do that last season. And then, like yesterday's clip the Lions put on Twitter, Malcolm Rodriguez play recognition to get on top of a screen. It wasn't like I always saw him dominating the run and getting through the lanes, but it's kind of tough from what I'm seeing, my perspective of it. But that being said, his play recognition, his fluidity when he's dropping in his zone coverage to change directions, and just, I think his patience would be the best way to describe it. That's what I thought. Patience, kind of just patient, but very agile, very good movement skills, and he was able to jump down on a screen and kind of blow it up, a pass that was thrown to Justin Jackson. Maybe not to the extent that it was yesterday, but a similar type of result happened for Malcolm Rodriguez, and that's the guy that Dan Campbell said he showed up yesterday. He's been in talks with the linebacker coach about possibly moving him up and giving him mixing in some first-team reps. We've actually seen that from Malcolm Rodriguez. The zone fluidity, the movement skills, the play rec in terms of screens, it's there. It's there. All the things that we saw in film, the way that Dan Campbell put it is that you can do that. You can be an undersized linebacker, but things usually have to go pretty much all perfect, because that linebacker doesn't have a lot of room to miss, because he doesn't have the length, doesn't have the size. he doesn't have a lot of room to miss. So he's got to be on top of play. He has to have a very good rep to make the play. But that's something that he's been doing for years with all the experience that he has had. Now, I do have another note, and this was a pass to DJ Chark, and this one reminded me of what we talked about yesterday and how Taylor Decker was saying Goff making checks at the line. I believe he made a check before this play, and they brought pressure, so he checked to it, and it was kind of like last year's, like, remember Amon-Ra St. Brown? It was against the Cardinals, where Jared Goff snapped it. He immediately rolled right, and he threw the little out route to St. Brown. He kind of like slammed on the brakes and got back upfield. It was kind of like that. It was sort of like that, where he looked like he checked it at the line, took the snap, and immediately rolled right away from the pass rush, and he threw it to DJ Chark, who had a nice little comeback route and a completion on the sideline. It's one that got some cheers from the audience. Me to one of those reps where it was the opposite result for Hutchinson, where you kind of saw him just get hemmed up and just locked out, and I couldn't tell if it was against Frank Ragnow or Jonah Jackson. I thought initially it was Jonah Jackson, but then when they got up, I was like, maybe that was Frank Ragnow. I'm going to say safely it was probably Jonah Jackson because he's at the guard position. Regardless, either one that it was, they locked him up. They hemmed him up. There was no movement. And actually, as soon as the whistle blew, they kind of just threw him to the ground. That's the kind of reps that you're seeing. And it's like one of those things where it's going to force him to be basically perfect because he is so talented and gifted that you're getting flash wins. But to consistently win, which is like, you know, really guys don't do that at pass rush. But to consistently win, he's going to have to be very perfect to do that because our offensive linemen are not going to let him get away with, you know, hey, that rep was just okay, but you still beat me because I messed up too. It just doesn't happen. Our O-linemen just don't mess up very often. Because of that, you have to be on your game. And right there, you saw that he got locked up and then just thrown down, tossed down. And I was like, okay, that's what you want to see, though. You want to see that battle, man. You want to see them push each other. Aiden Hutchinson needs that. A few of these 11-on-11 notes before we get to some of the notes from the final 1-minute drive that they did. Godwin had a nice outside run. Then Sean, Dion Hamilton, and Mccollum did a really nice job filling the run lanes. This is a guy that Dan Campbell said popped up with Sean Dion Hamilton. So I think because earlier in the day, they matched up Malcolm Rodriguez and Jared Davis. And we got to see that. Sean Dion Hamilton shows up when the pads come on. He wanted to get a little look at those two together. Dan Campbell also brought up Jared Davis, and he's another guy that he said showed up. And he also said that we wanted to give him opportunities at off-ball linebacker. We wanted to give those chances. And then on third down, you know, we'd mix him off at edge. But right now, he's basically just playing off-ball for the Lions, which again is where I think his biggest upside is playing the off-ball linebacker position. And he didn't look bad in coverage underneath some of those man coverage routes. He didn't really have, like, you know, reps where he locked guys up, but he didn't give a lot of airspace either. Like, he was pretty solid when they went through some of those group drills and things like that in terms of coverage. I will say this about Jared Davis. When they were doing kind of the, again, running back versus linebacker trying to block, Jared Davis was a handful. I just remember one rep had like ended just like that. It was like, all right, he already got there. So we know what he is as a blitzer. This guy is a problem coming downhill. And that rep ended quickly. I don't even know who he was against. It was so fast. I was like, okay, Jared Davis got there. So there's that. We know there's that. He's on a third down. You know, we like the idea of putting him on the edge, which I think if there's any ideal role for Jared Davis is that. Off ball, early downs, sub downs, put him on the edge and let him rush that way because that takes him a little bit out of pass coverage responsibilities. But if it still keeps him in coverage, it makes it very simplified because then it's either, hey, pass off, take the running back out of the backfield, or take the tight end. It's kind of like what we saw them do with the Lions back in 2019. I think he did kind of something like that as well. Now, that was Jared Davis who made the tackle in the flat the next play. Gave up a few yards, gave up the completion, but he closed and made a really big tackle out of bounds. And then there was the big play. This was probably the play of the day for the offensive side. It was like some sort of fake, like they flipped the play. They came back and threw a screen the opposite way. I don't even know what the heck happened. Either way, they threw it to a guy named Jamar Jefferson, and let's just say he took that thing to the house because that's what he does. He broke 3 tackles on the way to the end zone, but at the same time, it was a really cool play design because the defense seemed to be a little bit off on that one. It was Jamar Jefferson against secondary guys, so he had the leg up in that battle. And then finally, you had this 1-minute drill, which was the first team offense today, and it was, you know, I think it was one. I don't know exactly the time it started at, but after the first play, it was like 48 seconds. So I'm assuming it was about a 1-minute drill. The first play was the St. Brown out pass thrown on Jeff Okudah. So Jeff Okudah, again, working with the first unit here as well. Then they came back with a pass to Shane Zylstra on Deshaun Elliott. So 2 completions. They were starting off good. And then it was Aiden Hutchinson's turn to say, you know what? Let me get involved. Let me do a little something here. And that's what he did. Aiden Hutchinson got after the quarterback and forced the sack. I believe it was Aiden Hutchinson. He did like a little twist, like some sort of stunt work from the outside to the inside, working against the left side of the offensive line. So the, to Deckers, to Jonas, to Franks. It did a nice little twist stunt inside, and he ended up getting free and got after the quarterback. And you saw them actually working on this after practice, just kind of walking through twists and stunts as the defensive line. Hutchinson gets in there, they make the play, they get the sack, and that kind of threw off the drive, because then you have that. They come back with a rollout design for Jared Goff, throws it over to Amon-Ra St. Brown and A.J. Parker. He gets close to out of bounds. I guess they just acted like he was out of bounds. 18 seconds left as the play was just kind of blown dead. And then Aiden Hutchinson said, you know what, let me make my presence felt one more time. As now, I believe it was a third down. So I think you had your sack, you had your short pickup, wasn't a first down, so now it was a third down situation. And that's when Aiden Hutchinson said, let me just kind of finish this thing off. He didn't come up with the sack, but he beat our right guard to the quarterback, and you could just see him. And I remember sitting there watching, like, oh gosh, this dude's a problem. Like, he was just back there, and for some reason it looked like it was Jonah Jackson, but I'm like, Jonah Jackson doesn't play right guard, so it had to be Big V, unless they flipped it for some reason. Maybe they did. I think it was Big V though. Either way, it was the right guard. He beats the right guard. And this is what we're seeing with Hutchinson, is the way they lined it up in sub package here. Hutchinson is playing everywhere, and they're kind of moving him around like just a movable piece. Sometimes he wins on the edge. Sometimes he's a little bit more in the inside, all the way to lining outside of a guard. With that being said though, they've lined him up on the inside, kind of like at a 5, right, outside shoulder of an offensive tackle, and they put Julian outside of the tight end. So they had him working a little bit more on the inside. And then this pass rush came against the guard. So across the board, the lineup looked like Julian, Hutchinson, Aleem, and Charles. Now imagine this: Romeo next to Hutchinson, next to maybe Levi, but hopefully Josh Paschal when he's healthy, next to Charles Harris. Imagine that. Creativity to mix it up makes a lot of sense. Also, Aiden Hutchinson probably isn't the best bend. It's probably not his best attribute. It's definitely not his best attribute. But his agility made him a nightmare at Michigan for these interior pass rush situations, specifically 2020 and the small sample size that you did see. His stunt work was incredible too, and again, you saw that play earlier. So all the things are showing up that you saw in college, which is great. And here he beats the guard. Just looked too athletic for him. He got him quick with like a step, boom, got inside, and he forced Jared Goff to just throw the ball away. I mean, he was there in a hurry, and that led to the field goal where Austin Seibert went out and knocked it through, and that ended practice. For the special teams unit, Austin Seibert went 4 for 4 from 38, 43, 48, and 53. That's good to see. Riley Patterson went 3 for 4, missing his kick from 53 yards. But as Aiden Hutchinson said, he felt like they dominated today. I would say the defense probably won today. The offense didn't have as many like big plays downfield today, which I would say was kind of noticeable. The second and third unit still seemed to be a little bit behind. But with that being said, I think I would give the advantage to the defense today as well. Today was a fun day for practice. You felt the energy immediately. Jamal Williams just set the tone from the jump. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We'll be back for day number 7. Shout out to everybody that said what's up. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support. And we'll be back with training camp takeaways tomorrow. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.